right, so here is what's going on. Mr. Gain and Mr. Broderick, we're going to try to get big, get buff. We're going to work on seeing if we can do more push-ups, right? We want to make sure we can do as many push-ups as we can. Okay, so here's the situation. The situation is that Gain can already do 100 push-ups. True story. And he's going to work out, and he's going to be able to do 5 more each week. Okay, now, I can only do 30 push-ups right now, but I'm going to outwork him. Work harder, work smarter, and I'm going to be able to do 10 more each week. All right? So, I could ask you a lot of questions here, right? I could just ask you to kind of figure out, like, and if we were in person, I would be asking you to just figure out, like, all right, you know, who could do more after 10 days? How could you figure that out? What are some strategies? Okay, a little hard to have those conversations online. Let's just talk about how we would approach this from an algebra perspective. And from an algebra perspective, we can actually make our work more efficient by using equations. And what you might remember is that towards the beginning of the year, we worked with this form of an equation, y equals mx plus b. And if you remember when we graph this kind of equation, right, what do? We start at this number, like let's say that number is -3, right? And then this is like kind of how our graph changes and moves. Like it tells us how to rise, how to run, how to move, how to change. And so that's how we graph the lines. And it's kind of the same thing when we look at a word problem. This is the starting point. The number that goes here is like the starting point, right? Like just the way I started there on the graph. And this number here is the change, is what's changing. So for example, if I look at this first line with Gain, Gain can do 100 push-ups right now. That's his starting point. He's starting at 100. So this is his B, his starting point, right? And then how is that number changing, right? He's starting at being able to do 100 push-ups, and that number is going to change by 5 each week. That's his change, right? So like the next week, he's going to be able to do 105, and then 110, and then 115, and so on. So Gain's equation would look like this. Let's do G for Gain. Gain's equation would look like this. His change is 5, so y equals mx plus b, 5x plus, and his starting point would be 100. Okay, now for me, I'm also going to write a y equals mx plus b equation. And here I can only do 30 push-ups right now. That's my starting point. But each week I'm going to change, the number of push-ups that I can do is going to change by 10. And it's positive 10, right? Because I'm adding 10 here. I'm going to do 10 more push-ups each week. Okay, so my change is 10, and my starting point is 30. So here are my equations. Okay, so now, a favorite question for math teachers to ask is, when can they do the same number of push-ups, right? And in math, we love to enjoy this idea of sameness, of equality, of when are these two going to be equal, okay? And here's what I can do. I can say, okay, well, this expression right here, this is how many push-ups Gain is going to be able to do after a certain number of weeks. Like let's say, for example, I put a 3 right here, right? That would be 5 times 3, that'd be 15 plus 100, that'd be 115. That's after 3 weeks, Gain can do 115 push-ups, right? Which makes sense. Like he started at 100 and then each week he goes up 5. Okay, so that in orange is the number of push-ups Gain can do on a particular week. And here in yellow is the number of push-ups Ms. Broderick can do on a particular week. Okay, and I want to know, when are these two going to be equal? When is the number of push-ups that Gain can do in orange going to be equal to the number of push-ups that I can do? When are those two things going to be equal, right? So in this case, it's when is 5x plus 100 going to be equal to 10x plus 30? I want to know, what would x have to be for these two numbers to be equal? So what am I going to do? I'm going to solve for x. And I'm going to start by subtracting 5x from both sides. Why? Because I have x's on both sides of this equation here. Okay, I can't have that. In order to solve an equation, I got to have x's on just one side. Now, I could have chosen to subtract 10x as well. My goal right now is to get x's off of one side. But I will tell you, if you choose the smaller number of x's, you end up with just positives when you're solving, which is kind of nice, right? So positive numbers, if you subtract the smaller number of x's. Okay, so again, it would have been totally fine to subtract 10x. It's just we would have ended up with negative numbers, right? So here I'm going to write this as 5 minus 5 is 0. 100 equals 10 minus 5 is 5x. Bring down plus 30. Okay, now my x is here, and I'm trying to get x by itself. Okay, now here's the equal sign, and I want to get rid of everything that's on the same side of the equal sign as the x. So I'm going to start by subtracting 30 from both sides. And this is x being multiplied by 5, so I'm going to go ahead and divide by 5. And I get 14 equals x. So what that means is that we can do the same amount of push-ups after 14 days, right? Because remember, gains started at more, but then I'm improving faster. All right. And then another question you might ask is like, okay, well, who can do more after a particular number of days? Maybe 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, right? Whatever it is. Let's say 10 days. And again, we can use our equations as a shortcut. So for example, for gain, right, his equation is this. I'm just pulling it from right here, right? After 10 days, right, and let's just think about it. I'm going to plug in 10 for x, and let's think about why that makes sense. X represents the number, weeks, excuse me. This is weeks as well, right? It's the number of weeks. Sorry. If I've said days at all throughout this video, I meant weeks, and I apologize. Right? This is gain's starting point. So he's starting at 100. After 10 weeks, he's going to be able to do 5 more 10 times, right? So this is the amount that he's improved after 10 weeks. He improves 5 push-ups each week. So after 10 weeks, he's going to have improved by 50 push-ups. Okay? Now add that to where he started at 100, and after 10 weeks, he's doing 150 push-ups. Okay? Now what about me? Here's my equation. After 10 weeks, I've improved a lot, right? After 10 weeks, I've improved 10 push-ups each week. I've improved by 100 push-ups, and I started at 30. So after 10 weeks, I'm doing 130 push-ups. So who's doing more? Well, gain's still ahead of me right now, right? And remember, you can actually, I'm going to catch up to him after 14 weeks, right? And then after that, I'll be doing more, right? So make sure you have this down, and then you're going to try a few of these.